This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Paul Hansen. Thurley, Ruxton by Philip Verrill Mighels. Chapter 2. A Departed Glory. They had always walked the mile to Thurley's home to prolong their hour of pleasure. Tonight, as the dusk of evening slowly gathered, they were both exceptionally silent. Gaylord, indeed, had been far more than usually reserved all afternoon. To Thurley's feminine intuition was presently vouchsafed an inkling of portent in the air. From time to time she cast a glance at Gaylord's face, as if to read his thoughts. She found him gazing straight ahead persistently. A worry that she could not gloss with day-end happiness was present in her mind. When she spoke at last, she went frankly to the issue that she felt had been presented. "What a very odd encounter with the Major. It was, just a little bit embarrassing." Gaylord answered, "Yes." He still looked straight ahead. For some strange, inexplicable reason, Thurley felt a sinking at her heart. She summoned her courage to proceed. "It was kind of the Major, I am sure, to make me such an offer, but of course—" She halted it there, wishing to have him complete her thought, wishing to see him flare up warmly, declare his ownership in all she was, and even abuse the Major for his blunder. But he stared up the thoroughfare and was silent, while she waited at his side. Then at last he said, somewhat hoarsely, "Why didn't you accept what he offered?" For a moment she was certain she had heard incorrectly, that some unreal fear in her breast had voiced itself as if from his scarcely parted lips. But looking intently on his set, averted face, she felt an almost overwhelming weakness attack her, and her cheeks lost their colour and were white. "But, Acton, you— "Well, how could I?" she faltered hopelessly. "After all that's happened between—" And she halted as before. "All what?" he said after a moment. He could hardly have asked a question more brutal. She realized suddenly that all she had given, her love, her kiss, which to her had been so very much indeed, meant possibly nothing at all to him, save a pleasure to be taken for the asking. Even then she did not and could not wholly credit her senses. "All what?" she repeated weakly. "All what?" "Yes, all what?" His voice was increasing in firmness as he found her weak instead of accusing. "I should think you'd be glad of the Major's splendid offer. It might mean a very great improvement." "Do you mean," she said as one in a dream, that all you've said to me, and all the attention, that everything means nothing at all? You're not suggesting really—" "See here, Thurley," he broke in immediately, "this sort of thing couldn't go on forever, you know that. I'm going away tomorrow, and I'm going abroad next week." All the weight of his meaning, suspended before, crashed down on her unprotected head, as it were, and left her partially stunned. She could barely think, she could not reason, she could not rise to anger. "This sort of thing?" she repeated. "Certainly. Just the usual college sort of thing," he confessed baldly. "You knew all along I'd some day leave and follow my career, the career my family will naturally expect, which of course never contemplated this." She closed her eyes for the shame that rushed upon her, not so much for his intimation that between his family and hers there could be no hint of equality, not so much for this as for the sickening characterization of their association as usual college sort of thing. Her whole nature shrank upon itself, abashed and quivering. The love she had given him she could not snatch away. It had gone beyond recalling. But the love she had folded to her heart, his love, was gone, while still her hands were blindly groping. It had never been hers. It had been a college loan, to be taken away like a pin or any trinket. It seemed incredible, the whole affair, untrue, that a man could change like this within a time so brief, after all he had said and all he had done and all she had given of her love. Her voice was trembling when she spoke. "You, Acton, you surely don't mean that I'm not to see you any more, that this is—" "Why, of course, we may meet some time again," he interposed. "Now let's forget it. We've been good friends, and what more could we ask? You've always been a thoroughbred, and I thought, of course, you'd be one to the end." A thoroughbred. The end. She could make no reply. She walked on in silence at his side. The shades of evening enfolded the world. The city lights were gleaming in their mundane firmament. A thin, chill stratum in the atmosphere swept by and almost made her shiver. She felt strangely benumbed and unreal, incapable for the moment of accepting as her own the pain that had come to her breast. The little side gate at the house where Thurley lived was standing wide open when at last they came to the end of their walk in the dusk. Gaylord went in behind her, as she felt he would, and caught at her hand when they came to the all-concealing arbour in the garden. It was here he had kissed her just a week ago. "Good-bye, Thurley," he said. "You're a thoroughbred, all right. It's no good to be foolish and harbour ill feelings, you'll admit." He drew her forward in his way of ownership, to kiss her as before. "No," she said, "no." And she pushed him off in anger that was rising in her nature. No more of the college sort of thing. Not even a college good-bye. She had snatched her hand from his grasp. Her eyes took on a look of molten lava. During one scorching second she studied his face for a sign, overlooked in her former trust, and beheld it on his lip and on his brow. Then, suddenly turning, she left him there and swiftly escaped to the house. He stood for a moment gazing toward the door, and even started to follow up the path. But he presently faced about to the gate, and slowly retreated down the street. The dream was at an end. The sky had taken on a leaden grey, all the duller for the now departed glories. End chapter 2.